I am your host, Erasmus Williams, and we welcome listeners to ZIZ Radio, Kiss FM, Freedom FM, and Choice FM on Nevis. Remember, the number to call is 465-2555. That's 465-2555. Or you can email us at askthepm@zizonline.com. And as usual, we begin today's edition with an opening statement from the Right Honourable Dr. Denzil Llewellyn Douglas, the Prime Minister of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. Good morning, Prime Minister.
Good morning, Erasmus. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning to all of our listeners, and thank you so very much for tuning into this week's edition of Ask the Prime Minister. Firstly, I'd like to say happy birthday. Happy birthday to ZIZ. Some 52 years ago, ZIZ Broadcasting started to provide a very critically important service to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis and the people of the Caribbean region. I believe that it is only fitting that I congratulate and also express my profound gratitude to all those who have served here in this radio station. Radio station firstly, and then ZIZ Television. All of the managers, founding manager, who in fact was His Excellency, or I should say His Honor, Mr. Eustace John, and then all those who followed him after to provide this very important service. I also must mention Mr. Carney Osborne, who was definitely the first, and Mr. Eustace John following after. Also, today is happy birthday to the Antioch Baptist Church. They are 50 years old today. And remember Dr. Pastor Connor, who started out this service, who brought the Baptist as a denomination here to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, providing spiritual support, guidance and upliftment to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. We also congratulate, therefore, the present Pastor Connor and those who have served before him and those who, of course, are the elders of the church serving today. Secondly, I must apologize for not having been here last Tuesday. The Ministry of Finance was hosting the St. Kitts Nevis chapter of the Caribbean Growth Forum, and so both in my capacity as Minister of Finance as well as in my capacity as Prime Minister, it was essential for me to be there. The Ministry of Finance had long understood this forum to be a priority event, and so our own Financial Secretary, Hilary Hazel, and her team had worked very closely with our international partners to ensure that this launch got off on the right foot, as the old saying goes. The World Bank, the Inter-American Development Bank, the Caribbean Development Bank, and development agencies from United Kingdom and Canada were all key to this very important event in moving forward, as were, I must say, the Kittitian and Nevisian participants who provided the support of vital underground insights and input that are always so key to these types of exercises. Let me take this opportunity, therefore, to once again thank our local participants very much for their input and for their commitment to move forward with this undertaking in the weeks ahead. The purpose, of course, of the exercise was to get the international participants and our own people from both inside government and outside of government to really focus on the Federation's growth potential, the obstacles to growth, and to come up with some workable approaches to first spurring growth and then maintaining it. This type of introspection and planning is going on in countries throughout the region, and the exercise is an important and constructive one. The participants in the forum will now move beyond last week's session to continue their own interaction and exchanges for the next 5 weeks, with the opportunities for review, for reflection, and for refinement that this process will make possible. And so we look forward to the outcome of this ongoing collaboration. While I do not want to say to you, however, what I should say, I do want to say to you, however, is that even though Kittitians and Nevisians know just how disciplined our country has been during this period of global uncertainty, and even though we know firsthand that St. Kitts and Nevis has been undertaking the kind of hard work these hard times worldwide demand, it was still gratifying to have the international analysts at the forum, specialists who are in no way affiliated with the government of St. Kitts and Nevis, and who instead represent some of the most respected international financial institutions in the world, praise St. Kitts and Nevis for having undertaken the hard work that is absolutely essential if we are to achieve the growth of which our country is capable. Growth, I must add, that international financial institutions predict that St. Kitts and Nevis will see in 2013. In addition, the dramatic improvement of St. Kitts and Nevis' debt situation was also praised, and the role of the special purpose vehicle in the reduction of our debt was very much praised as well. Many opposition types have tried to mislead the public into thinking that the land involved in the special purpose vehicle has been set aside for foreigners. This is the exact same thing that their political party said when Labour first started developing Frigate Bay many years ago in the 70s. Yet today, most of the key people from that same political party are now living in Frigate Bay, happy as ever in the same Frigate Bay development that they had once condemned. I guarantee you that you will see people from that same party, our political detractors, living on the lands in the special purpose vehicle, or their companies making good use of this land that through the special purpose vehicle is now available to them. The first session of the forum mentioned earlier, it lasted all day, and there is an abundance of details that came out of it. But the most compelling point made, the most important point made, as this government continues moving forward with the work we were elected to do, was that investor confidence in St. Kitts and Nevis remains absolutely strong. Again, I repeat and reiterate, those international specialists whose job it is to pore over reams and reams of financial data from countries all over the world, those whose professional responsibilities expose them to both the potential and the problems of countries across the globe, and those international analysts who have no interest in either promoting or opposing any political party in St. Kitts or Nevis, reminded all assembled at the Caribbean Growth Forum that at the end of the day, investor confidence in St. Kitts and Nevis remains absolutely strong. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is like money in the bank. If a country wants growth, it must be able to attract investors. And if it wishes to attract investors, those investors must have confidence in the country. They must feel and know, based on careful analysis and meticulous observation, that the country in question is well run, that it has a reputation for sound management, that it has dependability, and of course it has stability. And that, listeners, we in St. Kitts and Nevis definitely have right now. As a result of vision, sacrifice, and effective leadership, we have sound management, dependability, and stability. We must therefore let no one take this from us. We must not, as the old people used to say, let anybody put the country out of bread when they can give us biscuit. We, therefore, must instead continue to work and be disciplined for our own good, for the good of our families, and for the good of our own country. There are those all around the world who love to view small nations as jokers, has been places of unending confusion, dissension, and ineptitude. St. Kitts and Nevis has no intention of being anybody's joke. Today and together, we have built a solid and respected little nation, a stable and respected democracy. And this we shall continue to be. A good reputation, once broken, is often impossible to mend. And that does not apply only to the individuals. It applies to countries too. And on that note, I want to share with you a very important undertaking that is now underway throughout our federation. As most of you know, listeners, Mr. Elvis Newton was named our head of the public service in early January of this year. He has since then been doing an extraordinary job. But there is one area in particular that I wish to discuss with you this morning, and that pertains to his thrust in the area of the civil service reform. It is not enough to implement the kinds of programs and policies that generate growth, even though that is extremely important. A government must also equip itself and its people to both expedite the process of growth as well as realize the multi-dimensional benefits that are the result of such growth. And so in light of this, our own head of the civil service, head of the public service, who once was called the Chief Secretary, Mr. Newton, and his team have made reform and modernization of the St. Kitts Nevis civil service a #1 priority. And indeed, draft documents have already been submitted to Cabinet to ensure increased civil service efficiency, the more effective delivery of services, the tightening of management, oversight, and accountability. The organization and structure of the civil service is being revamped. Leadership development and succession planning is being incorporated. The mission and values of the service are being articulated. Wage policy and payroll management are being emphasized. Not only in my official capacity do I welcome this, but indeed as an ordinary citizen, I do welcome this. I now know that this is something that will receive widespread support and indeed a hearty welcome throughout the length and breadth of our country. In the final analysis, listeners, all of this has to do with standards. Individuals need them, families need them, and countries need them as well. And so we all have to be more mindful, much more mindful of this, whatever our individual area of endeavor. We cannot, for example, wait until our people enter the world of work to impress upon them the importance of standards. Standards at home, standards at school, and at play, before they even get to work. And so, in addition to whatever families may be doing on their own, in addition to whatever community groups and churches may be doing in this regard, the Ministry of Education has decided that it too will become involved in ensuring that the Federation students are not only technically proficient and able to pass several CXC subjects, but that they also understand the importance of decorum and self-control. We want them to be comfortable in a range of social situations. We want them to understand the wide and varied requirements of pleasant interpersonal relations. And so these types of skills are now being taught to students at our nation's secondary schools with the assistance of learning coordinator, Mrs. Eleanor Phillip. We want them to be taught and to learn the soft skills. The skills being imparted to these youngsters will make family life more pleasant in St. Kitts and Nevis. They will make life in our communities more pleasant. And then, of course, once our young people enter the world of work, it will make it easier for them to succeed there as well. Before closing, I wish to stress again how important it is for us to manage our affairs well, and with a keen, unwavering awareness that in this global era and climate, every country really has to paddle his own canoe. And who cannot swim will certainly drown. We are all very much aware of the horrors that President Obama is experiencing in the United States at this particular time. We are not an American colony, but what happens in the United States has a direct impact on what happens not only here, but all throughout the world. We all know about the massive spending cuts that sequestration is expected to bring to the U.S. economy and the body blow that these cuts will represent in our people's lives. I mention this because we can all remember how just a few years ago everyone was rushing to the Virgin Islands. That is where one went if one wanted improved life chances. Well, not only is the Virgin Islands being pummeled in by the global recession in general and massive industry closures in particular, but those islands beneficiaries of a special status are now projected to lose some US $100 million in federal financial flows over the next 8 years as a result of the social and economic crisis into which the United States has been thrust. The world has indeed changed. Civil servants right here in the Caribbean, separate and apart from the Virgin Islands, are repeatedly being told time after time that there are no funds with which to pay them. A very difficult state for all involved. We sympathize and we empathize, and we must also send prayers of thanks heavenward for mercies received as we continue pushing forward with vision, with dedication, and with discipline. For this moment in world history will accept no less. I thank all of the radio stations that broadcast this show each week, and now invite our listeners, our very reliable listeners, to share their views with me and with the people of this our blessed land as to how we can make our country better and our people enjoy a better quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Right Honourable Dr. Denzil Douglas, as we go to the phone lines and we say good morning. Remember, the number to call is 465-2555. That's 465-2555. Or you can email us at askthepm@zizonline.com. We say good morning again to our first caller. Good morning.
Prime Minister, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
And good morning to Mr. Erasmus
Good morning.
Williams. Prime Minister, I am very concerned as a citizen of this country as to how our money is being spent and where it is going. I've been told, where it is alleged, that $50 million has been given as a loan from the SIDF fund to some developers on the southeastern peninsula. Is that true? That's my first question. Secondly, it appears as though our court are determined to uphold the rule of law. We had a constitutional matter just recently. Once again, the court came down in favor of the people and justice. Why is the government appealing a matter which is so clear, very clear, that what happened in Parliament recently was done not in the rules of the House, but rather very tactfully by your Prime Minister? I don't believe our money, the people's money, should be spent on no appeal. It is obvious that you're going to call the election. We see what is happening. So go and call the election. We know you're not going to face no motion of no confidence.
What is your question, caller?
Have a nice day.
All right, I want to thank our first caller for his questions. There are two questions, as far as I can recognize. One is whether the SIDF has loaned $50 million to a developer on the Southeast Peninsula. Firstly, I must say I do not speak for the SIDF. The SIDF is an independent foundation founded by the St. Kitts, Nevis and Guyana National Bank Trust. I think they are capable of speaking for themselves, However, to answer the question much more specifically, I do not know of any loan of $50 million that has been advanced to any developer on the Southeast Peninsula. Although I do not speak for the SIDF, I believe that if any loan of this kind was ever advanced to any entity here in St. Kitts and Nevis, I believe that I would have heard of such, and I have heard nothing of the kind. Therefore, this has to be puerile propaganda. The second question is, why is the government appealing the matter that was heard finally in the court last week, Thursday, I think it was?
Friday.
Last week, Thursday.
Friday. Judgment
Came in on Friday. Why is the government appealing the matter? The government has been advised to appeal the matter, firstly, on the question as to whether the interpretation that has been given by the learned judge, whether that is the only interpretation that exists. And we appeal it on that matter because, as I said in my own broadcast last week, Friday, that twice before, we had done the very same procedure. We had used the very same procedure in appointing a fourth senator to the Parliament of St. Kitts and Nevis. As I recall, the law specifically, the Constitution specifically states that where there are 3 senators, and one of those 3 is in fact the Attorney General, then the number of senators increases by 1. And so, in our opinion, we had interpreted that to mean exactly as it says. When there are 3 senators already sitting, and one of those senators is the Attorney General, then we simply appoint another senator. We felt that in a situation where there were in fact 3 senators, and at the end of the day, one of those eventually appointed would be as an Attorney General, then we had the constitutional support in making that kind of appointment. Twice we had done that, back in 2006, and even before 2006, I think before that was 2002, when the sitting Attorney General had become a senator. At that time, we did have 4 senators in our parliament. When in 2006, the sitting Attorney General and Senator Delano Barth had resigned, and Dr. Dennis Merchant became a senator and Attorney General, we used the very same thing. We didn't have to have one senator first resigning and then appointing the senator as the Attorney General and then bringing back another senator after that. And that is what the court, from our interpretation, said on Friday that we should do. That where we've had 2 senators sitting on the government side, and we need to appoint a senator as the Attorney General, we have to ask one of those 2 sitting to resign, appoint the Attorney General as the senator, and then of course becoming Attorney General, and then we appoint the person who would have resigned to another senatorial position. It sounds quite ridiculous to us, and we believe that the procedure is not specifically outlined in the Constitution. What is outlined in the Constitution is that we are able to have 4 senators, and that's exactly what we were seeking to do. Let me make it clear that what I think the opposition had set out to do, which it would appear their position was modified, what they had set out to do was to say that we could not have a 4th senator, that the Attorney General could not be appointed as a senator. And the court, I believe, has now proven that to be absolutely nonsense, absolute nonsense, that we can have a 4th senator, and that 4th senator can be the Attorney General. not that the Attorney General has to be a public officer, which is what the PAM opposition and others, and Mr. Kondo, who had taken the matter to court initially, were trying to say. They were trying to say that the government could not have a fourth senator, that the senator, if he was going to be appointed as an Attorney General, or if the person was going to be appointed as Attorney General, he could not be a senator, but had to be the public officer going through the Legal and Judicial Services Commission, etc., which we have proven not to be so. So in a way, we have learned a lot. Both sides, I think, have learned a lot from this judgment, and that is the basis on which we are going to appeal. As I sit here, we have been having discussions with our lawyers as to whether the senator's bill has been saved or not, because there is reference to the relevant part of the Constitution which says that the court does not look into what has transpired into the Parliament. And since the senator's bill was properly passed at the time when it was felt very strongly that the Attorney General was properly sitting, then there is the advice that is being given and which the government is in fact looking at, that the senator's bill has been saved. And if it has been saved, how do we know it has been saved? So there's very definite reason and ground for appealing, that is on the interpretation as to whether or not the procedure that the judge outlined in the judgment on Friday is the only interpretation. And secondly, we have not yet committed ourselves to appeal the senator's bill. That, of course, is something that we're looking at.
Thank you very much. As we go back to the phone lines, and we welcome our next caller. Good morning. Ask the PM.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Prime Minister. This is Calvin Beach. How are you today?
I am fine. And how about you, Calvin?
I'm doing very well, enjoying my vacation here in St. Kitts.
Very good.
As I always do.
Very good.
Before I ask my question, I just want to just preface it with a point.
Yes.
That I do not believe that the SIDF would have been set up without your intervention, without your knowledge, and cannot make any decision without referring it to you. I cannot see that type of money that has been there that can affect what matters in St. Kitts. Anything done out of the SIDF of which you are not knowledgeable about. Now, in asking my question, and it's in a sense it's a follow-up to the one that was asked recently, did you or any person acting on the government or the SIDF entered into negotiations to buy Christophe Harbour? That is my first question.
Okay.
And the other part to that question is, the Prime Minister, did you or anyone, having reached an agreement to buy Christophe Harbour for a certain amount of money, a large amount of money, did you or anyone nix that deal? And did you...
What did you say? What?
Did you or anyone acting on behalf of you, acting on behalf of the government, nix, if there was a completed negotiation to buy Christophe Harbour, did anyone nix that deal?
What do you mean by nixed? Just to make sure I understand what you're saying.
Stop the deal.
Stop the deal. Oh, okay.
Okay. And did you at any time promise to loan Christophe Harbour a very large sum of money because that it is alleged that Christophe Harbour is having a monetary problem? Those are my questions, Mr. Prime Minister.
Very good. I want to thank you, Calvin, for your questions. Let me say firstly that the action that is being taken by SIDF, definitely they are not all actions that I know about. Even though I have been instrumental, of course, as the Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, in putting the SIDF together, what it meant, negotiating it, traveling to meet with persons who were instrumental in bringing the proposal to the government, and working with our financial secretary at that time and government advisor to shape it. We definitely do not know all that the SIDF is engaged in. I definitely do not know. The SIDF was eventually founded by the National Bank Trust, as I said before. It has a board of governors who are entirely independent of government. I think, however, for good politics and good management, I think the government from time to time is made aware of important transactions that it can make and it is making. And it is in that context that I am aware, in answering your question, that the SIDF was in fact in negotiations with persons, not in Christopher Harbour, of course, not lending any money to Christopher Harbour, but were engaged with the owners of Christopher Harbour to possibly purchase it or join with others, if possible, to purchase it. I am not aware that the SIDF or myself or the government promised to loan any money, any large sum of money, or any money at all to any entity that was interested in owning Christopher Harbour. Neither did the government at any time, or SIDF, as far as I am aware, loan any money to the owners of Christopher Harbour. As far as I'm concerned, Christopher Harbour development has been a very solid investment development that is being pursued, as every development, especially at this time since 2009, every development has been having its own difficulties. However, I was very impressed with the presentation that was made last week, Friday, I think it was, when the present manager of Christopher Harbour outlined the future development. And I am very, very impressed that Christopher Harbour, though it would have been experiencing some difficulties, as every development and every developer would have been experiencing at this time, is now fully much on its way to overcome those challenges and is now recording significant sales in a way that it never did before. In fact, the young man who made the presentation, the general manager there, indicated that for the first 2 months of this year, they had already met all of the sale requirements expected for the entire year of 2013, which was very, very impressive. And this information is available to the public. The government definitely, and I believe SIDF definitely has not, and I definitely have not promised anyone to lend money. We are not in the business of lending money. Government is in the business of borrowing and spending on behalf of the people, not lending any money. And the SIDF, of course, it can get involved in activities of investment opportunities, where it can invest the money that it has, not only for its own future salvation and its own future development, but definitely as part and parcel of impacting the socio-economic development for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. I personally have very strong and full confidence in the Christopher Harbour development, and I also have a lot of confidence in the future, in the present management and the future management of the SIDF funds. Again, I emphasize that the government does not dictate, does not direct, but the government from time to time is kept informed. I, in particular, as the finance minister, am kept informed of very important transactions that the SIDF may become involved in. But to say that every decision that the SIDF makes has to be approved, has to be sanctioned, is known by the government or the Prime Minister or Minister of Finance is just not true. Let's move on.
Thank you very much. And we go back to the phone lines, reminding you that you're listening to another edition of Ask the Prime Minister. Good morning. Ask the PM.
Good morning, Honorable Prime Minister.
Good morning, sir.
And good morning, Mr. Williams.
Good morning.
Mr. PM, are you aware that the demonizing rage against you
Yes.
did not happen by chance? It was carefully planned a few years ago. Let us not forget that Southwell Limo suffered the same fate. It is a shame of who we thought was our own are the instigators. Lucifer was called the morning star. He was the brightest. But he became a traitor and too greedy in God's kingdom. Lucifer lost respect for God and the angels that continued to support God. Eventually, God had to throw Lucifer and those rebel angels out of his kingdom. The Bible says, God's words will be seen on earth in the last days. Hold on to your faith, Mr. PM. Remember also that the Bible says there are false prophets among us, and we must be aware of them. So they will come to us like wolves in sheep clothing, ready to unleash their wicked plans. You remember the last time, I think it was over 2 weeks ago, when you last was and asked the Prime Minister, I told you I was going to tell you why they do not want the senator. Listen to it carefully. They themselves publicly have said that you wanted the extra senators to get your bills and program passed in Parliament. Well, of course, if that is the case, so be it. But you see, they are not prepared to support the government programs for the people, and that your hands must be kept tied behind your backs while they carry out their plans. You got the Constitution, sir, and you must use it to your advantage. In Cabinet, they are outflanked by the honest majority, but in Parliament, they hold the balance through their disloyalty. The latter, they want to frustrate you, the government and its people, for personal reasons. Watch the foul, and you will see the play. They talk about when you travel. When you travel, you bring back great value for your travel. That can happen because that can only happen because of your credibility, your great leadership, and you are highly respected all over the world. The World Bank, the IMF, our own ECCB, the investors, C-SPAN, regionally and internationally, all of them could be wrong, sir, when they speak to your trust and your great leadership and the envy of St. Kitts. Nevis, compared to most countries, reference the economies due to the world recession. But let me tell you something now, for unity governments. That don't work nowhere in the world. I am aware of the failures of this unity government in Tobago. They lost all their seats. Trinidad is now falling apart. These initials, TH, SR, and CH, all went to Trinidad to seek advice from that government about a unity government here. The lady said, "Oh, you're crazy. You see the problems I have?" Tillman of Grenada, unity government, just lost all his seats. All his seats, which was a unity government, including all who ran as independent. They demonized Mitchell with lies. They get into power, and now the people make them pay. Those are just a few. Labour people and well-wishers of the Labour government take warning. Mr. Prime Minister, are you aware that when political leaders are forced from office, or even when they're sick and they got confusion, are you aware that those governments never last? They lose power and find themselves in all kind of difficulties to get back in power? Well, I can tell you one or two of them. You had Blair to Gordon Brown, and we got some Gordon Browns right here, right, of England. Patterson to Poacher, that's Jamaica. Compton to King, that's in Lucia. Fleming to Banks, that's in Anguilla. That's just a few. The people here must take warning and be aware of it. Finally, sir, this unity government they're trying to set up here already in confusion. The central rookie says he is for this unity government, but Pam will be in control. The one in Kayan said he for it, but only for 2 to 3 years, by which time things will be in place for Pam, and everybody would go back to their respective parties. The one who went to Marriott said Pam will be in charge. Mark said he is not aware of a leader or any unity government. People, that is the recipe for confusion. A huge setback for the country. No investors will come here just like it happened in Grenada. Now, who is a leader? Listen to this carefully, you see? Who is a leader? A great leader is one who directs and influences others in such a manner that obtains their willing obedience, confidence, respect, and loyal cooperation in order to accomplish a mission in the manner desired by the leader. You are such a leader, Mr. Prime Minister. And last, they're talking about vote of no confidence. Mr. Limo brought a vote of no confidence against Pam. Up to now, that ain't reached the Parliament. I want them to tell me about that one. Tell me about the vote of no confidence. Thank you very much, sir.
I want to thank our caller for making some very credible statements, which I am sure, when turned into questions, the answers are quite obvious. Can unity governments, from the examples we have seen, can they last? And what really can they bring for the benefit of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, given the historical background, which has been identified so eloquently by our last caller? A case in point is Trinidad and Tobago, where from the very beginning that government has been battling a number of leadership crises and all kinds of problems that have been identified with that government. Of course, the government continues to function, but we are aware of a lot of the difficulties and challenges that the government are well associated with. Look at the situation in Grenada. I understand that the leader of the PAM party, Mr. Richard, said that Douglas should take warning as to what happened in Grenada. I think that he should look at what has happened in Grenada and take warning. Because if perchance, and I hope in good heavens that doesn't happen, they happen to form some unity government, which is a pie-in-the-sky government that keeps it. It's a pits government. A pie-in-the-sky government is a pits government. By chance, if that ever happens, he needs to look at what has happened in Grenada. The Tillman Thomas government was a unity government. Three parties came together and created a government. Within the first year, that government was beset by all kinds of problems. In fact, so unfortunate, Tillman is a friend of mine, but it was so unfortunate that there's nothing credible and tangible that the government could have appointed to for the period that it was in government, because it had been beset by all kinds of infighting, all kinds of problems of challenging the leader, the prime minister, as to who wants to become the prime minister and so forth. And all kinds of problems existed, so that people concentrated so much, the government concentrated so much on its own internal survival that the agenda of the people became sidelined. And that is why the caller is right. When you look at situations in the past where governments in existence, in power, have made changes to their leadership, and when the people and the party have not been involved in that kind of leadership change, where the leader handpicks his successor and hands over a government to that person, invariably they fail, especially where there have been confusion. And that is where I think the government here, the Labour government of St. Kitts and Nevis, has been so much correct in the path that it is following. When someone can say to the Prime Minister, you must resign and hand over to me, or hand over to someone else, just hand over, that definitely is not the way it is done. The St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party is a democratic institution. It has a constitution that outlines how succession and how its leader is to be chosen. The leader cannot be handpicked by the outgoing leader. It doesn't work like that. Whoever wishes to become the leader of our great party must face the music. You must go firstly to the party at its conference, put your name down as one who wishes to contest the leadership, and contest, among others, who are also interested in contesting the leadership. It is not going to be possible for that person to become leader except going through that particular route. And when that party, having gone through that particular route, is in fact in government, then it has to be a relationship with his own cabinet colleagues before he can become the prime minister. He or she has to be definitely finding support with his colleagues in parliament in order to have the privilege of becoming the prime minister. I don't really care who believes that I got the prime ministership when I was 41 years old. I don't care who asks me, how long do you expect me to remain before I become the prime minister? I don't care who asks me those questions. Those are frivolous and really non-consequential questions. What I believe is important is when you are ready to hand over, let me know so that we can put the machinery in place in order to succeed the sitting prime minister. There's no need for any fighting. And that is why I want to make it clear that the government, the cabinet that I lead, has taken definitive action to ensure that it can continue to carry out the mandate of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis by ensuring that those who no longer want to be part of our government, our cabinet, must move aside. You must either resign or you will be ejected, as the case has been. Let's move on.
Thank you very much, Right Honourable Prime Minister. As we go back to the phone lines and we say good morning to our next caller.
Good morning, Rasmus.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, PM. How are you this morning?
I am fine, my dear. Good morning.
Yes, I'm listening to you this morning, but I cannot hear you too clear because you keep cutting in, the volume keep cutting in and cutting out. But I want to give God thanks for you this morning.
Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from New York.
New York, okay.
I just want to give God thanks for
I hope the technicians is aware of the problem.
I tired calling and report it. PM, I want to ask you one question about, maybe two. It is right for someone to put someone's name in the newspaper if they don't want the name in the newspaper. It is right for NHC to sell people's land where they already paid for back in St. Kitts. And the next thing I want to say to you, PM, it doesn't matter who wants you to move. When your time comes, you will move. But you are there for a purpose and to look over we, the Labour people, and also the other parties, everybody in the Federation. And I just want to say, may God continue to guide you, and may God continue to bless you and give you the wisdom and understanding to lead the Federation. And not only that, I want to tell Mr. Sam Kanda, he need to go back and ask God for forgiveness for what he want to do to you. And also to Timothy Harris, I want to tell Timothy Harris, this is Azarine against calling from New York. When his brothers and everybody home is picking on me, it doesn't matter. You want to pick on me? I know you personal. You know me personal. Let it pick on me. I don't care. I will always got your back, and I will always say what I have to say about you, big and broad, not only in St. Kitts, but everywhere I go. PM, may God continue blessing you and bless the Labour Party. Without you, St. Kitts will have never been where it is today. And I thank God for you. And I will always pray that God will guide you in the proper direction. And number one again, when Dwyer is the one that stopped all this conflict in the Labour Party, everybody needs to go back and think about Dwyer when he was running. I remember one time I told you, PM, the wire is not a labor, but you smile and you tell me leave it there. PM, my word come to pass to see the man who he is. And next thing, they put my name in the Observer newspaper the last time when I called in to you. Some Hewlett, I don't know who he is, but if I wanted my name in the newspaper, I will have told him. But anyhow, I'm not in St. Kitts to fight that battle, but one day I will be able to fight it. But PM, you continue doing the good work, and may God continue blessing you. Erasmus, take care, and may God continue blessing you and your family.
Thank you.
I want to thank Azarine, a very noble soul, very strong supporter and defender of what is right and what is just. I want to thank her for always in defense of the struggles of her people, whether they are here in St. Kitts and Nevis or in North America. Azarine, if anyone has put your name into a newspaper and you think that they have violated any of the laws of this land in doing so, sue them. That is all I would advise at this time. Get a lawyer. In fact, you should tell me the article in which newspaper. I will look for it. I will give it to a lawyer. Let the lawyer look at it. And if there has been any damage done to you, your integrity, you as a person, sue them. I will advise you on that after I see what has been written. I want to say, caller, that if the NHC has taken property that was offered to you on a contract and the NHC has violated that contract in any way, then of course you should give me the details and let me look into the matter for you. Of course, if you have violated the contract as well, NHC, I believe, can take action. But let me get the details privately and let me look into the matter to see exactly what has happened in that case. I want to thank you, Azarine, for your firm support. I think the advice that you have given to Conda and Harris is sound advice. I hope they have been listening. Let's move on.
As we go back to the phone lines and we welcome our next caller. Good morning. Ask the PM.
Good morning, Dr. Douglas, Prime Minister. Good morning, Mr. Williams.
Good morning.
Morning.
This is Christus Wallace, founder of the Blazing Star Movement. I want to let you know initially that our team prays for you daily. That's what the Bible says, to do no matter what and no matter how we feel. I want to ask you, what do you think of the concept of a new youth party and youth government concept? So my question is simple. Are you afraid? Are you interested also in meeting with the leader of the CCM, NRP, PAM, and BSM immediately? Not to discuss any type of politics, but to put our differences aside and come up with a national plan of empowerment to help turn this nation around. Another question. How often do you look into the happenings at the government-run St. Kitts Nevis Development Bank? Have you heard of how tardy some officers there are? Have you heard that it is very hard to refinance? Don't you think that the Development Bank should establish a special department to look at each loan that is in arrears and assign special officers to each case to help people? That would be one way to help to empower the nation. Our party isn't looking at pulling you down, Dr. Douglas. We believe Papa Bracher, he made a big impact. Dr. Simmons made a big impact. You made a big impact. But we need fresh minds. We need fresh ideas. It would be remiss of me to not thank your St. Kitts Nevis-led Labour administration government for the help that you would have given my company. I'm not going to be launching a smear campaign at anybody. What we are launching is an empowerment campaign. And finally, I want to tell you, Dr. Douglas, that our party admires you of how you remain focused while, pundits come here and there. And that is a true mark of a politician. And in our little meetings with our young people, we said that is a lesson that we should pull from your book. No matter what, we have to stay focused. We're just 5 days old, and already we know the People's Action Movement, they have started a smear campaign on us like they have on you. So we believe that come polling day, it's going to be the Blazing Star Movement up against the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party. And so our question is, are you ready for us, and are you afraid?
I want to thank Christus Wallace for his call as the founder leader of the Blazing Star Movement, which is the latest political party I'm advised to have come on the scene. Christus, I am not afraid. I welcome the ideas of young people in particular. I welcome opportunity to dialogue, to discuss. I welcome opportunities to consult with those who I believe have credible and worthwhile ideas that would help to advance our great country, St. Kitts and Nevis. I therefore look forward for the opportunity, of course, to dialogue with you in your capacity as the leader, with the leader of CCM, the leader of PAM, with the leader of NRP, because I believe it is out of the contending of ideas that we would be able to find that path that provides light as to how we should move our country and our people forward in the future. I want to say very strongly that I am pleased that you are not getting involved in smear campaigns. Those who believe that they can get into political office and power by smearing others' image and character, they will soon realize that our people demand much more than that from them. That is why today the PAM party has almost disappeared. A party that has been around for over 50 years at this very moment is not able at all to mount a credible slate of candidates to field into the next election, although that party happened to have been in government for 15 long years. So it's really a pity, and it is because I believe of the way that the PAM party has been led over the years why it now finds itself into what I call the political doldrums, almost on the political dung heap, I would say. But, Christus, my advice to you as you emerge as a leader of a credible political party, you should look at what has happened to those who have followed the path that has not been uplifting for our people, and look also at those who have made it their focused attention to work towards the upliftment of our people through thick and thin, though very much challenged, especially at this time, though very much challenged with the global economic situation, with all kinds of social problems resulting in the region and in St. Kitts and Nevis as a result, we here in this country, as leaders of this country, continue to forge ahead, never for one moment, never, I repeat, for one movement, being persuaded to move away from our focused attention, and that is seeing how we can continue to improve the quality of life of our people with limited resources at our disposal, finding creative ways and means of ensuring that we nevertheless can forge ahead for the benefit of our people. I personally have no regrets whatsoever. I believe that our country has moved forward by leaps and bounds in the last 17 years that I have had the opportunity to lead it. I believe I have built tremendously on what I met when I came into office 17 years ago. And I will continue. I want to say, Wallace, young Wallace, and your young warriors, I will continue to ensure that we can become role models for you as you chart a new political life for yourself and for your supporters. I believe that you have been a man called to pastor. And if God has now seen it fit for you to change from that path to one of lending political support and direction for your country, who am I to criticize you? All I can say, I welcome you with open arms and hope that we will be able to work with each other. God bless you, my brother.
As we go back to the phone lines, and we say good morning to our next caller. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Prime Minister.
Good morning.
And how are you this morning?
I am fine.
Well, I'm still celebrating. Because this is my mother's month now.
Oh, I see.
Mr. Prime Minister, I just wanted to tell you something. I'm glad all the saying and the talking what's going on, I'm glad you ain't come on no ear and make yourself look like no puppy show. I'm glad that you stay calm and you continue keep so. Stay calm. Because where's a calm, where's a storm, there's a calm. And you have some people taking the church and making mockery of the church. Going around, they go in church on the Sunday, and then when they finish, in the week is something else, different. They have all kind of things to go on with and all kind of things to say. And I think that if you go to church, and you go to church on Sunday, you're supposed to keep holy for the balance of the week until now and forever. And don't get politics in your head and going on and criticizing people, criticizing the Prime Minister, criticizing other people. That is not good enough. All of us is God's children, and we need to take a stand. We need to stop behave like something is wrong with us. Nothing is wrong with us. But some people have so much evil in their stomach. Evil. And I don't know what happened to them. They need to get this evil thing out their stomach. You can't be going to church and have evil in your stomach. And these things got to stop. We got to stop these things. We got to live good with one another. We can't be continuing our behavior, our evil behavior all the days of our life. We have to trust God. Put God first. And then all our wicked ways and evil ways will pass. And that is my contribution for this morning. I have nothing else to say.
I want to thank my dear good friend. Don't know if she said what her name was, but clearly her voice was distinct. She said she's still celebrating. I happen to know that she's celebrating the 50th anniversary of her birthday, and I had the privilege and honor on Sunday to be invited to celebrate with her. I want to say to you, my dear, I did enjoy it. I enjoyed the fellowship with you and your family and friends who were at the Mansion Primary School having a good time. I want to say from the bottom of my heart, God bless you. God continue to guide you and giving you the strength to carry on, because what you've just described a moment ago is the hypocritical behavior of some of our people. Hypocrites, that's what it is. You do something today, pretend that you are meek and mild and loving, etc. And then when you look at the other hand, you behave like a real harlot. And there's no other way to describe that, really. This is the hypocritical behavior that we find among some people. I don't really mind those who wish to criticize me, because if I was not important to them, then of course I would not be the subject of talk, continuing talk and criticism. So I believe, therefore, Ingrid, my dear friend, sorry to call your name, I want to thank you again for reminding us of our our hypocritical behavior, all of us, and for us to take warning that God is not asleep. God sees, hears, and He knows everything, and He knows what is inside our hearts, despite what we say. what we articulate. He knows exactly what is in our hearts. I want to thank you for the calm that you have brought to my program this morning. I want to thank you for the calm that you have brought to me by your very encouraging and sobering words. Thank you, my dear.
As we go back to the phone lines, and we welcome our next caller. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Prime Minister.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Rasmus Williams.
Good morning.
My name is Earl Clark. Mr. Prime Minister, what you are going through, the smear campaign that you are going through presently, is the same smear campaign that Mr. Bradshaw went through, to the point that when Mr. Bradshaw was on his dying bed, suffering from cancer, one of the speakers of PAM went on the platform and said, Mr. Bradshaw is down there at his home in Portland, smelling stink like a currant. That was the respect they paid to a dying man. And they come and talking about decency and respectability. You hold straight, Mr. Prime Minister. They did the same thing to Mr. Southwell. Mr. Southwell was not born here. He's a Dominican. He should go back home. But Mr. Southwell and Mr. Bradshaw were working in the interest of the ordinary people of this country. And again, when Limo came on the scene, they took a picture of Limo in a private home when he was drinking with his friends, and he fell asleep because apparently he was tipsy. And they sent it all over the world. What you are going through now is typical of PAM in regards to the leadership of the Labour Party. But Mr. Prime Minister, I respect you, and there are a lot of people who respect you for keeping your calm. If I can bear to hear the truth that I have spoken, twisted by nerves to make a trap for fools, then I am a man. And you are a man, Mr. Prime Minister. Mr. Prime Minister, there are two kinds of birds. You have the yard fowl, whose duty is to scratch for worms. They cannot fly. They cannot soar. They would always be grounded by their negativism. But you are like an eagle. You are soaring above the negativism, the propaganda that is thrown at you on a daily basis. And you have risen. And you are nearer to God because you have risen. And that is why people must respect you. You can't afford to go on the radio and go down to their level by saying, what is this and what is that? No, you'll just be like them. And they would have no respect for you. But because you are soaring like the eagle, they have to look up to you and continue to look to soar, Mr. Prime Minister. Because power comes from God. And it is because of the power of God why you are there. And the only person who can move you is God. And you are doing a wonderful job. And I am sure that God is pleased with you. Continue to soar, Mr. Prime Minister. Thank you very much.
I want to thank our last caller, Mr. Clark, identified himself as such, for his very encouraging words. And I want to say to him, I shall continue to soar like an eagle. Who can't stop me, then join me in soaring. Because you see, really, I am not one who can be easily persuaded to depart from the path, the focused path that I have taken. My life has always been one of humility. I am a fierce fighter, of course, when I get into battle. But I know what battles to get involved in. I know what comments to respond to. I know what is a smear campaign. I know what is demonization. Because he's right. The caller is right. I was of age when I was able to hear those who were in opposition to Mr. Bradshaw and those who are now in opposition to the Labour Party government said publicly that Mr. Bradshaw's bones lying in the cemetery in Springfield, they should not even be placed there. They should be dug up and thrown into the sea, because our first national hero, they said then, was not fit to even be in the cemetery here in St. Kitts and Nevis. I remember those times. I remember, the caller is right, when Mr. Southwell was castigated, vilified, ridiculed. It's been told by the opposition of yesterday and the opposition of today that he should be sent back to Dominica on a boat because he had no right here in our country, St. Kitts and Nevis. A man who had lived most of his life here in our country, building it. And yet the PAM party in opposition then said he was no longer fit to be here in St. Kitts and Nevis because he dared to oppose them in government. And who am I, therefore, Denzil Douglas? Who am I? Who am I if those two great men, our national heroes, were treated in that way? Who am I to be vilified, to be demonized, to be ridiculed in the way that they are trying to do today? But I shall rise. I shall soar as an eagle. My brother, you are right. I shall continue to soar. Let's move on.
As we take our final call, good morning. Ask
Hi,
PM.
good morning, PM. You want to know who are you? Don't you know you are our hero? And you will always be our hero. So don't worry, the two ballot and the some ballot them. Don't worry at all. I want to say thank you to the police them for giving me my flowers last week, Saturday. Now I'm alive. PM, I don't have a thing else to tell you, but I love you and have a wonderful day. Don't worry at all.
Rodney,
Get your heart at ease. Have a good day.
Rodney, my darling, I love you too.
And Rodney, before you go, I can report that the St. Paul's Daycare and Nursery is under construction. Okay, that was our final caller. PM, wrap up.
I think today has been a lovely day. Our people understand. Our people definitely know what is truth from what is propaganda. Look at the propaganda that came from the first few questions this morning. That the SIDF has loaned money, has promised to lend money, that the Prime Minister has sanctioned this and sanctioned that. All absolute foolishness and propaganda. And the easiest thing to do is to go across and ask the SIDF what its activities are. But no one is prepared to do that. They think that coming on a radio, telling lies, slandering people, making negative and dirty comments are what the people of St. Kitts and Nevis want to hear. Absolute foolishness. That's not what our people want to hear. Our people are educated. We have spent millions of dollars, which is now the debt money. That's what we have spent on educating our people. We have made it possible, yes, for the radio stations, for people to be able to communicate freely. We freed up the media, but we didn't free up the media for people to ridicule themselves and make themselves look foolish. We did it so that people can become educated, and we are still committed to that. I want to say today has been a good day because apart from some of the foolish questions we've had, we've also had some questions which brought calm, which were uplifting. And I believe definitely that I will always remember Ingrid and also Rodney, of course, and Clark, who made those very important comments, and together with Azarine, who have been uplifting and calming for today's program. God bless you. Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of another edition of Ask the Prime Minister. You can join us next week, Tuesday, at the same time. And just here is a reminder to residents of constituency St. Christopher 7. The Right Honourable Prime Minister will be speaking to supporters of his St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party tomorrow, Wednesday evening, at the Joshua Obadiah Williams Primary School at 7 p.m. That's 7 o'clock tomorrow evening, Wednesday. Thanks once again to listeners to ZIZ Radio, KISS FM, Freedom FM, Choice FM. Thank you. We join you next Tuesday at the same time.